This luxury chicken coop is such a treat, but it's not where we started. And if you're thinking of keeping backyard chickens, it's not where you need to start either. This was our first chicken coop, and it was a great starter to our backyard pets/farm animals. It is all that you need for your chickens to be comfortable, and it's also not going to break the bank. The only things that we had to buy for this chicken coop were this piece of roof from any big box hardware store. They're going to sell that for you, and the mesh to keep them protected. This is an old kitchen cabinet that somebody was throwing away. This is likewise, someone was discarding an old piece of furniture. I'm not actually sure what it was originally, but some sort of cabinet. And then we had some old leftover pieces of wood and some cinder blocks that actually were in our yard from I don't know what. But you put it all together with some nails and some glue and you have a chicken coop. So what are the components? What do you have to think of to do something like this? Well, chickens really only need 5 things. They need protection from the elements, protection from predators. They need to have a place to go sleep, a roost, a place to be outside, so a run, which can be your backyard if you're just going to have a coop for them to stay in, but they have free range during the day. And they need to have a place, if they're females, to feel comfortable to lay their eggs, a laying box. So let's go through those. Protection from the elements. So for a chicken, that means they need to be able to stay dry. So we have this nice slanted roof so that it's going to be dry in their coop. And they also need ventilation and insulation. The insulation, so that's why we have it off the ground. It's going to keep it just a little bit more insulated by being above the ground on these cinder blocks where the chickens are actually going to sleep. And ventilation, you'll notice at the top of our middle part of the coop where they sleep especially, there is a hole cut and hardware cloth put on top of it. And that's so that if there's humid air that builds up, then that will escape out of the top rather than condense on the chickens and in the cold possibly cause issues like frostbite. This cord was here just so that we could give them some supplemental light as well at one point. And I think we had one night when it went down to minus 40 degrees Celsius, so that night we did give them a little extra heat. Protection from predators. So you don't want to have any little gaps that a rat or squirrel can get in trying to eat the chicken's food, or that a skunk or a fox might be able to exploit to get to the chickens themselves. Everything likes to eat chicken, including chickens sometimes as well, but you don't need to protect the chickens from the chickens most of the time. Anyway, chicken wire is really good at keeping chickens in, but it's not really good at keeping predators out. So forgo the chicken wire, cover everything that needs covering. So that's any space that's bigger than an inch around with hardware cloth, and you can just staple it on and that will be fine. They need a place to sleep, so their roost. In the wild, a chicken will go up high to sleep. That's where they're going to feel the safest. So you want to replicate that in their chicken coop. So you want to put their roost fairly high up compared to the rest of their living places, and about a foot of roost per chicken. So this coop is good for, we had 3 small chickens in it. It was a bit cramped. We intended to have 2, but that's just the way the hatch sort of worked out. So a foot of bar for the chickens to roost on. That's where they'll sleep. That's where they'll do most of their pooping as well. So you really want to make it attractive for them so that they don't go poop somewhere else where you might not want, for example, their eggs to be covered in poop. And round is a really good shape for their feet. So this roost is just a piece of tree that we were pruning anyway, about 1.5 inches in diameter. That's a really good shape for their feet. And round also helps the poop to mainly fall off rather than collect and be bad for their feet to be standing in. And up as high off the ground as you can without them hitting their heads, and certainly a little bit higher than their laying box. And their laying box, they go through their coop over to here. You want to give them a nice little dark space for them to feel nice and private and again safe, and they will lay their eggs in there. So here we came through, we just had some storage on the top and the bottom. There is a bit of a failed feeding tube here as well, but that's okay, neither here nor there. And the chickens would come in here and they would lay their eggs. And then their run, you want their run on the other side to be as big as possible, because the more freedom, the more space the chickens have to run around and scratch, the happier they're going to be. Now this is a little bit small, but we do let our chickens out into the yard as well, so that makes up for it a bit. And you could have no run at all if you're going to let your chickens out and then just have to worry about where they're going to sleep and lay their eggs. But generally, you want them to have as much space as you can give them. Certainly 5 square feet per bird if you can do it. And this is where we put their food and their water. Just make sure that they have access to both at all times. Chickens are really great at not overeating, so you don't have to worry about giving them too much food, but you do want their food to be in a good condition. So in one of those containers where it comes down, or a feeding system where you can fill it from the top, those can be really great. You can make them out of PVC, they're wonderful. Or just a bucket. And if that's all you can do, you just a couple times a day bring out a little tiny yogurt bucket kind of thing. Works just fine. So you don't need very much to give your chickens a nice, comfortable, secure place to stay in your backyard. And it's a really good way of testing to see if you like having chickens. We loved it. That's why we now have the big, deluxe, fancy, super fun chicken coop on the other side, but a lot of fond memories for this one over here too.